Oh, you're getting really good at that.
Yeah, what changed? I gotta find out.
So here we are. We are in the governance and priorities meeting for May the 17th, 2023, starting the meeting at 6:19. So we'll call the meeting to order. And we have everyone in the room except Councillor Williams, who I'm going to just double check the tech and see if he's online. Councillor Williams, are you there?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome, the seance is working. Okay, we'll begin with adoption of the agenda. Any additions to the agenda?
No, your worship.
Anything from council? Nobody has an appetite for that. Councillor Colkin.
I'll make a motion that the agenda be adopted as presented.
Perfect. Any discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
That is carried. No delegations, no business arising. Draft policy 1972, health and wellness under item 6.1. And did I miss minutes? Oh, I did miss minutes. I'm sorry. Thank you, Councillor Prestidge. Item 3, adoption of minutes. Priority meeting minutes from April 19th, 2023. Any errors or omissions there? Councillor Cush.
I'll move the minutes from April 19th as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Cush. Any discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. That is passed. Now we'll move on to 6.1. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. Draft policy 1972 health and wellness program. And Mr. Frank, you're going to take us.
Yeah, your worship, members of council, I acknowledge Leah was also part of the committee that has drafted the policy, and we created a committee to have input in regards to this from the staff, and there was a very diverse opinions on how this proposed health and wellness policy should be revised. One of the things from an administrative perspective, this is a very policy that, depending on what you believe is health and wellness in regards to your interpretation, that it could be questioned on what was eligible. So when the committee kind of take a look at everything from providing annually a health and wellness taxable benefit, and then they can choose whatever they wanted to do, to where it should be a long list of eligible items, and that's it. So if it wasn't on that list, then it wouldn't be considered. I took a different approach, and this, with the input of the staff as well as the council, or the staff as well as management, I took a position that the onus on the employee to determine, based on the definitions that are provided in the new policy, to verify that they're using the health and wellness to their benefit program. And that's what it is. It is a benefit program. And there were 3 exceptions that we said that we wouldn't allow anything related to their vacation, because that is not a benefit, it is being provided to you, and that we want you to take your vacation and go away and not use a different program to fund that. The second thing is anything that would do harm to you, and trust me, there's been requests from everything from ammunition to guns to cigarettes to alcohol that would be classified. So we said that if it does any harm, and that is an interpretation, we understand that, but again, the purpose is health and wellness, and therefore we thought that it was important that the emphasis be on health and wellness. And then the third one was everyday item use, and clothing comes to mind, as well as vitamins were the two ones that people would make claims on, and it would be questioned all the time. Now, one of the things that wasn't in the old policy was an appeal mechanism, and we heard it loud and clear that the opportunity for the staff to have appeal was important to them, and so the Director of Corporate Service continues to make those decisions, or her designate, and I become the appeal mechanism for the final say in regards to that. So the other changes to the policy are administrative policies where when they can apply. We had people making claims every 2 weeks, so we limited to that to 4 times a year, up to a minimum of $200. So it reduces the administrative costs. What else was the administration? That was the big one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It being effective from their first date of employment, because currently it's from probation.
Right, yeah, so it was effective from the first day of your employment, you just had to pass your probation in to that before you claim, right? The other change is we are recommending, it was brought to our attention, this policy is 2009 and hasn't changed, and the staff asked for consideration to increase it to numbers effective January 1st, 2024, not this year. So it would be in the 2024 budget. And then I would think Leah and I could take questions if council has any. Oh, sorry, Your Worship, that's your job.
Just one question for me. You said it starts on the day of their employment, the first day of their employment?
So currently when we prorate for example, $800, we prorate it from the first day that they complete probation, but this admin would be, say I start January 4th, it would be prorated from January 4th, but I can't claim it until I pass probation.
Okay, because they have okay, so you're just gonna prorate the January 1st, that, whatever.
Yeah, so if you start,
Yeah,
for example,
okay.
June 1st, right, and you have a 3-month probation, right, and then June, July, August. So September 1st, you can now claim back to January 1st because now you get,
June 1st.
June 1st, you get $450, say, whatever's prorated for that year.
No harm, so no MMA classes then.
Good point.
I make a motion that the GP committee forward updated draft policy 1972 health and wellness program to council for their consideration.
Okay, Councillor Kush, motion on the floor. Any further discussion on the motion or the policy? I see nothing, I hear nothing. All in favor? That is passed.
In favor.
It's still passed. Thank you, Councillor Williams, I forgot to wait for you. Garden suite definition, item 6.2. Betcha that's why Joan is here. Yes, it is. Look at that. Okay, Joan, I'll turn this over to you.
Okay, so a notice of motion was made on April 26th, requesting that the definition of a garden suite be brought forward to the governance and priorities committees for discussion. So I've attached from the land use bylaw the definition of a garden suite, as well as section 75, which gives a little more detail with respect to them. Other than that context, the Municipal Government Act changed in 2020, in which they called it Golden Girl Amendments. Just in other words, you can't make reference to family relationships, financial disparity, or whatever it might be, in your land use bylaw. It has to be land use related. So just meaning that we need to make amendment to that particular definition. Our solicitors did indicate to us at the time when that amendment was made that we would continue to use our bylaw as is until such time as our land use bylaw was reviewed and amended. as council is aware, that amendment will be probably starting fall of this year. We're just currently looking at our municipal development. And this is next on the this definition, as well as secondary suites, is being reviewed at that time.
Yeah, and if I could, that I think was the concern from council, was just running afoul of the new MGA, and it's revised 2020. So we,
If someone challenged it, municipal affairs could do an investigation and say, hey, you need to amend that. But our solicitors felt that if we have somewhere in our timeline that we're amending our document, that would be a sufficient argument, so. And it was supposed to occur last year, however, just given, time, resources, it didn't happen, and it is on the schedule for this year.
yeah. Any questions? Councilor Dean?
Yeah, I have a question as to what the philosophy is behind this policy with respect to only allowing a familial relationship. You know, there are numerous properties scattered around town. A residence. You know, there's the vacancy for rentals in this area very, very low. We insist on a property only owner having to have a familial relationship. I don't understand that.
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, that was the philosophy of the council of the day, is that they didn't want those rental properties. We have residents that are concerned with having two neighbors next door to them. And it was decided then that they would put that family relationship, and that was often the primary purpose of people coming to us. That was the primary purpose, was that it was either a child, well actually initially it was just for grandparents or parents. We then, a few years later, had opened it up so that it could be any type of family relationship, as long as there was some sort of a financial need there. And now, of course, things have changed such that, yeah, you can open it up that it be such as rental properties. So we need to look at those definitions.
So open up, so
Well, so the Municipal Government Act has essentially said that municipalities can't regulate people.
Right.
We can only regulate the, so to take that reference out. Now, as to whether that's prerogative when we land use by that, you know, is it a garden suite or is it just a secondary suite? You know, and we can play with those definitions. Garden suite could still be there. Essentially just taking out that family relationship, and that you can have a temporary structure that's smaller than the primary residence as a secondary suite, so to speak.
Councilor Cush and then Councilor Copeland.
Kind of covered part of my question I had, but what will be the difference in the definition between a garden suite and a secondary suite?
So generally, a garden suite is its own dwelling unit. Secondary suite is something that's internal, or say on a garage, top of a garage suite. So you can have like a basement secondary suite, where you've got the secondary entrance to that particular location, or you can have a garage with living quarters on the top of it. That's what we had defined as secondary suite. And then our garden suite, of course, was generally for relatives.
I think, if I remember correctly, on MPC, we run across a couple of things, and I know, how thick is your binder for things that you want to look at when you get to the, just little things like that?
We have a long list that we've provided the consultant, yeah.
Yeah. Councilor Colkin.
Yeah, just a question through to Joan. Like, I have a secondary residence on my property. It's been there since 1978. And it's even registered as a secondary residence on that property. it's neither a garden suite or a secondary. So how does that fit into the equation?
If I may ask, how many acres have you got?
Do I farm?
Yep.
A half section?
Okay, so in our land use bylaw, anything over 70 acres in size can have a second residence.
Okay.
Generally, it's to be used for agricultural purpose. So say you have a farmhand that
That's what
you employ, they can live in that second residence.
No development permit for you.
What's that?
They were gonna take you down.
Legal
Hey,
No,
non-conforming.
it's fine. I just want, we're on, there's a few of those that exist in the county, and because this is streaming, people really need to know the difference between a garden suite, a secondary residence, and a secondary.
Well, and when the land use bylaw consult starts to come up too, so that people are aware of this and you know, the information's out there, so. Okay, as long as we don't start trouble with this, we're so close to amending it. What would it take to just amend that definition without amending the whole land use bylaw? It's kind of the same amount of work, because you have to go through all that consultation and all that. That's why we're waiting, right?
It's generally better to have a series of amendments versus amending continually one item at a time.
So there's a cost component along with that, so we're,
Because you're still having to advertise the 2
Yep.
weeks prior, you gotta hold your public hearings. Yeah, generally, if it's specifically the municipalities making an amendment to land use bylaw, do some consultation prior to the public hearing
Okay.
as well.
Council Prestige.
Through the chair to Joan, somebody's listening to this tonight, comes in tomorrow and says, we want a secondary suite. Are we gonna deny them? Or are we gonna go saying there's an amendment coming, we'll let it go?
Actually, under our secondary suite definition, I think we had amended it slightly enough that we could probably entertain it as a secondary suite versus a garden suite.
So the family,
The family end part of it wouldn't be involved in it. So it may, when we look at this, we need to look at the two. It may meld into just one definition as a secondary residence.
Okay. Are we comfortable? Okay, I'll accept a motion. Council Prestige.
I'll make a motion, the Governance and Priorities Committee accept garden suite definition as information.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Councilor Williams?
In favor.
Thank you, Councilor Williams. Thank you, Joan. So that's carried. And thank you, Joan. That was tremendously helpful. And you're on to the next one here, Policy 1018, Public Participation Policy.
Okay, again, this was a notice of motion made with respect to land use and public engagement. So sent here for discussion. So pursuant to section 1216 of the Municipal Government Act, a council must have established a public participation policy for the municipality. So I attached policy 1018, public participation policy for council's discussion. That policy was put into place, I believe it was in 2018, when the amendments to the act occurred. At the time, it was done as a very simple policy, essentially indicating communication methods and that we would engage with the public. There are various different policies that are out there that municipalities had entertained at the time. Some were very robust. Those were generally the larger municipalities, in which they have a 35-page public policy document. But I mean, that details everything from a public hearing to just an open house, or and it's specific to a land use amendment when you have a planning document that you're reviewing, or say, your budget open houses. It's very detailed as to specifically what you do for, in each of those instances. And those were generally done by consultants. And I guess just for further information from our perspective or administration's perspective, we do a planning review in specific administration and a consultant look at the policies. We generally have a list because we get a sense when we're working with the documents as to what's working, what's not working, what we're hearing from the community. So we look at those changes, come up with a draft document. What I've done in the past is I've vetted that through the Municipal Planning Commission because they deal with the documents quite regularly, as well as the subdivision and development appeal members are generally invited to that workshop. And then once they've had their round, we make those amendments and then we bring it forward to council for discussion at a workshop if there's anything further with it. And then, of course, creating the draft bylaw to be presented to, which then we would do to get their comment, concerns, changes, anything that they may see that needs tweaking. And then, of course, we bring it to council for first reading and, we bring it to first reading, public hearing, and then bring it back for a second and third reading.
Okay, thank you. I think more than anything, if I remember this correctly, I think we kind of saw a public engagement portion on an agenda for another municipality that shall remain nameless. And we kind of looked at that and saw an opportunity for engagement there. And I guess we were trying to, this is quite structured and tends to be triggered by a process, whereas I think what council was trying to drive at was trying to get a little bit of more open communication between residents, whether we like it or not. I mean, there's been some stuff that's gone on in the last while that it would be nice to be able to kind of have some of that communication. I think that's what council was talking about. So I'm going to go with Councillor Colkin and then Councillor Push.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where we need to go, is that there's a real interest in public because of events that have happened in the past, that there's a sense that they haven't been part of that process. Whether it's right or wrong is irrelevant, but I think going down this path, I think it'll be, we will have that mechanism in place where we can get the information, have that information, and council is able to sit with administration in front of the residents with the process in place. And the big one is that we know that they want to have the conversation, and I don't think they realize that it's far more complex than what any one of us as individuals on council can explain. We need to have that administration professional piece included.
If I might address that too, in discussions with our consultant, with particular our municipal development plan, because there's some amendments that have the potential to impact, I'll say, the farming community as far as potential future subdivision, is that we're looking at maybe doing a workshop beforehand to get the sense of, are people open to this or are they not? We had thought perhaps we would look at one in the Anselmo area and then one at the Fort Assiniboine area, just to get a sense from the public as to what their thoughts are and the direction that we're looking at going to protect the farmland.
And I think that's a great idea. If I just can Council Push, the response and the feedback that we got, we put out the survey, arts and culture center participation, and we gave a large chunk of information. The participation and the feedback that we got from that, A, was invaluable, and B, I got a lot of people saying we really appreciated being asked the question and involved in that process. well ahead of the term as to before you committed any money or whatever. So I think it was really good, and there's certainly an opportunity to up the game. So, Councillor Cush.
It's just kind of, I guess, a question, or, I know we did have a comment before, conversation just a little while back, and I think it kind of falls into the GMP, whatever they got, what is it here? Kind of, or GMP conversation or whatever with council. But we had talked about having a portion of the council, meetings or whatever for participants where the public could come engage and, ask a question as long as it wasn't something being dealt with on that schedule or whatnot. And that's kind of dropped off. I just haven't heard anything else. I was wondering how that might kind of play into this policy, or if it's just something that we're still developing, or.
So this would be an amendment under the meeting procedures bylaw. Sorry, go ahead. You were
Yep,
gonna-
yep, that just gonna say exactly that.
Oh, sorry. I'm stealing your thunder.
No thunder.
Just lately.
The mics are really sensitive in here. Councillor D.
So just to follow up on Councillor Cush's question, yeah, that I brought that up, and like Councillor Cush said, I can't remember whether a motion was made to send it to GNP, where it was discussed. Does anybody remember where that went?
Kind of dropped off.
No, there was a
The
motion to
public-
send it to
The
GNP.
public input session?
Yeah.
The public input session was discussed here, and a motion was made that it be added to the meeting procedures bylaw refresh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it has been added to the meeting procedures bylaw?
The refresh has not been done.
Okay, okay. And the timeline for that is?
When we have resources and the province is not on fire.
Gotcha.
We have a new individual starting next week that will assist and help pick up some of the backlog.
Okay. So will what we want as a council be incorporated in the refresh? And what do we want to do with this policy? We don't want to change this policy, we're good with this policy, it's in the meeting procedure bylaw refresh that is where we're wanting to see that change, is that correct?
I think
Okay,
what she's added here makes sense as well.
right. So then, go ahead,
A
Council.
motion that the Governance and Priorities Committee accepts the discussion on policy 101.8, public participation as information.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. That is carried. With that, Councillor,
The motion to adjourn.
all right,